Alex gripped the steering wheel with both hands. His gaze swept over the deserted streets of the city. The night covered the city with a thick velvet blanket. Only a few lanterns cut the darkness with yellow light. The engine hummed softly inside the taxi, and the radio played a calm jazz tune that seemed to match the rhythm of his own thoughts. Every day Alex saw hundreds of faces, heard thousands of stories, and each of them left a small imprint on him. Today's shift was unremarkable. A couple of young people were laughing in the back seat. An old man was talking about his lost wallet. But even in these fleeting encounters, Alex felt a special responsibility. He carried other people's lives through the streets, where every turn could become fateful. Sophia came back to his mind. He couldn't understand why there had been any tension between them in recent weeks. She was beautiful, smart, with a light smile that could melt any clouds. But recently something has changed. Alex found his heart sinking a little every time he thought about her evening meetings, about her slight detachment, about those rare moments when her eyes avoided his gaze. He stopped at a red light, and his own reflection flashed in the rearview mirror. His face is calm and even, but there is anxiety in the depths of his eyes. Alex knew that trust was the foundation of any relationship, and that any doubt could destroy that foundation if left to its own devices. As the taxi moved on, Alex turned his attention back to the road. He could feel the rhythm of the city, hear the wheels creaking on the old asphalt, the wind rustling between the skyscrapers, and a siren going off somewhere in the distance. In this silence of the night, he could think, reflect, and listen to himself. Today, his route took him to the old quarter, where the narrow streets gave the feeling that the city was hiding its secrets. Alex knew that every passenger, every trip, is a little story, sometimes joyful, sometimes sad. And perhaps, sooner or later, his own story will turn out to be among these thousands of stories, a story that will test his strength. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air through the slightly ajar window. At that moment, he didn't know that his life was about to change, that the very person he trusted the most in the world was already starting to make a choice that would turn his world around. The traffic light changed to green. Alex drove off slowly. There was a night ahead, a long road, and thousands of unknown stories. But none of them looked like the one that was starting right now. Alex parked his taxi at his usual spot, a small, cozy street where he and Sophia's apartment stood. The house looked quiet, almost serene. The windows reflected the light of the streetlights, and it seemed that the world outside the apartment had stopped. Alex closed the taxi door, took a deep breath, and headed for the entrance, thoughts of the night shift still spinning in his head. Everything looked cozy inside. Soft lighting, paintings on the walls, shelves with books. Everything spoke of family, care, and warmth. But there was a slight tension in the air that Alex couldn't ignore. He felt that an invisible wall had appeared between him and Sophia. Sophia greeted him on the threshold with a smile that at first glance looked ordinary and friendly, but there was a certain weariness and hidden anxiety hidden in the depths of her eyes. She was wearing a light dress, her hair was neatly arranged, and the scent of her perfume, light, floral, brought back memories of the first days of their acquaintance. "Hi," Sophia said, her voice calm and even, but Alex detected a slight note of detachment. "Hi," he replied, trying not to show that he was alarmed by something in her tone. "How was your day?" Sophia sat cross-legged on the sofa and sighed lightly. "It's okay," she said. "I'm a little tired, but nothing special." Alex watched her, trying to detect any signs of anxiety or excitement, but she skillfully kept her face calm. She spoke words that sounded sincere, but there was a hidden distance in her gestures, a slight aversion from the gaze, short answers, rare smiles. Alex felt that something was changing, but he couldn't figure out what it was. He put his bag on the table and sat down next to her, trying to start a normal conversation about the day, about work, about the little things that once filled their communication with warmth. Sophia participated in the conversation, but her answers were dry and formal. Alex remembered how she used to laugh, support jokes, share thoughts about the future, but now it all seemed far away. After dinner, they sat in silence in the living room. Alex watched Sophia flipping through her phone, occasionally distracted by social media screens. There was a slight secretiveness in her behavior. It was as if she was hiding something insignificant, but it was alarming that this had not happened before. Alex understood that trust is not only words, but also behavior. And at that moment, he began to feel that an invisible crack had appeared between them. A crack that could be the beginning of something much more complicated than just being tired or having a tired day. He got up, went to the window, and looked out at the night city, illuminated by dozens of lights. Deep down, he hoped that these were only temporary difficulties, that they would be able to regain their former warmth. But his heart told him that things might not be as simple as they seemed at first glance. Sophia was sitting on the couch, immersed in her phone, and did not notice how Alex turned to her. He saw her smile, visible only to someone else's screen, and for the first time in a long time, he felt strangely uneasy. It was quiet, almost imperceptible, but its grip was getting tighter, like a shadow that was slowly advancing. Sophia decided to spend the evening outside the house. Alex was still working the night shift, and she went to a cozy cafe near their neighborhood. A small place with soft lights, the scent of fresh coffee, and quiet music created by a live piano. Those who appreciated the tranquility and solitude in the midst of the hustle and bustle of the city gathered here. Sophia sat down at a table by the window, took out a notebook, pretended to be working, although in fact her thoughts were in a completely different place. She often looked around, savoring the atmosphere, watching the passers-by. It was her little ritual to feel free while Alex was busy with his work until he saw these subtle changes in her behavior. It was here that she met Lucas. He sat down at the next table, accidentally spilling some coffee on the edge of her table. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said, smiling, and his eyes met hers. "I acted a little awkwardly." Sophia smiled, slightly embarrassed. It's okay." Lucas was a charming, confident man with a slight playfulness in his voice. He started talking about cafes, music, and the city. Sophia answered cautiously, but her inner curiosity was aroused. She didn't know what exactly she was looking for, but there was a slight spark in Lucas' voice that she hadn't felt at home in a long time. "Do you come here often?" Lucas asked, pretending to be interested in the cafe. "Sometimes," Sophia replied, slightly distracted from the thought that Alex was still on his way home. "It's cozy here." The conversation continued. Lucas managed to maintain a light and relaxed atmosphere. He talked about little things that seemed simple, but at the same time intriguing. Sophia felt a strange feeling of excitement growing inside her, mixed with guilt. She knew that she was experiencing emotions that she should have reserved only for her husband, but Lucas was able to arouse the interest that she had been missing for a long time. The evening dragged on. They shared stories about their jobs, hobbies, and laughed at little things that seemed funny only to them. Sophia found herself laughing lightly, almost carefree, in a way she hadn't laughed at home in a long time. Before leaving, Lucas carefully left a business card. "Can we continue the conversation sometime? I would be glad." Sophia took the card, her heart trembling a little. She understood that it could be dangerous, that this was just the beginning of something that could destroy her familiar world. But the excitement, the slight excitement, the play of emotions seemed too attractive to her to dismiss right away. When she returned home, the streets of the city seemed a little different, bright, but with a shadow of the unknown. Sophia's mind was spinning. Can a little intrigue become something more? Alex, meanwhile, continued to work. He did not suspect that in just a couple of hours in his absence, Sophia had already led into her life a man whose appearance would slowly but surely begin to destroy the trust in their marriage. Sophia went home, carefully put the business card in her bag, and smiled to herself. Her smile was quiet, almost innocent, but there was a hint of the game she was just starting. The next day, Alex woke up earlier than usual. The morning light was in the room, soft and warm, but inside it everything was somehow unsettling. He watched Sophia slowly prepare coffee, carefully arrange the cups on the table. Everything looked familiar and comfortable, but a feeling of slight anxiety crept into Alex's heart, as if something was escaping his attention. "Good morning," he said, trying to smile. "Morning," Sophia replied. Her voice sounded even, but there was a slight coldness in it, barely perceptible. Alex noticed that she was constantly distracted by her phone, checking messages with slight anxiety, hiding the screen when he accidentally glanced at it. He told himself that maybe it was just work emails or notifications from friends, but the feeling of anxiety wouldn't let go. During the day, Alex began to notice little things. Sophia doesn't always remember what they agreed on the day before. She sometimes stays late at work or in meetings with friends, which seemed strange to him. Sometimes he caught her quickly closing her phone or hiding the screen, as if she was afraid that he would see something. Alex was trying to be objective. He remembered himself, his mistakes, and tried to find a rational explanation for her behavior. Fatigue, stress, small misunderstandings. But inside, something stubbornly whispered that the trust on which their marriage was based was beginning to wobble. Sophia, meanwhile, moved around the house as if on a fine line. She smiled, jokingly answered questions, kept up a conversation, but at the same time her every action was carefully thought out. She could create the illusion of an ordinary day, an ordinary marriage. Alex only saw what she let him see. In the evening, Sophia was going to go out again to meet a friend. Alex offered to walk her out, but she joked, "Oh, it's okay. I'm not far away. Don't worry." He took her word for it. And yet, when the door closed, Alex felt a strange emptiness. He stood in the living room, listened to the lock close, and realized that he was beginning to notice that his trust was being tested a little. Small details that had previously seemed insignificant began to form a strange mosaic. Late calls, a slight reticence, Sophia's unusual caution. Alex understood that if something was going on, Sophia knew how to hide it. She behaves expertly, as if nothing unusual is happening. Doubt grew inside him, but he didn't dare to do anything. He loved her and didn't want to think about the bad things. At the same time, a quiet sense of anxiety became part of his daily routine. Alex was beginning to realize that trust is not just words and promises, but also subtle signals that cannot be ignored. It was on this day that the shadow that would soon turn into a storm was born. A shadow that will haunt them both until it reveals the real truth. Alex did not know that his life was already beginning to change. Sophia and Lucas were taking the first steps towards an intrigue that would soon become unfathomable to Alex's heart. The next day, Alex woke up with a heavy feeling in his chest. Yesterday's suspicions wouldn't let go of him, and he knew that if he didn't do something, his anxiety would grow and his trust would finally collapse. He started small. He watched Sophia closely. When she picked up the phone, he casually looked at the screen, noticing how quickly she hid the notifications. Alex understood that it might be something insignificant, but his heart sank anyway. "Is everything okay? What is it?" he asked one day, when Sophia was deftly hiding her phone under a pillow on the couch. "Yes, it's fine," she replied, smiling a light, almost innocent smile. Alex felt his anxiety subside slightly, but inside he knew that this was just the beginning. He decided to proceed cautiously, without sudden movements. Alex began to make a small map of her evenings, where she goes, who she meets, what excuses she gives. He wrote everything down in a notebook, trying to remain an invisible observer. At work, he also began to pay attention to details. Who was calling Sophia, which calls she was receiving, and how quickly she responded to messages. Everything looked innocent, but Alex began to notice patterns. Sometimes the phone vibrated too often. Sometimes she went into another room to talk. At the same time, Sophia continued to masterfully hide her actions. She smiled and jokingly answered questions, giving the impression that nothing unusual was happening. She planned her evening itineraries in advance, avoided casual meetings in advance, and did everything so that Alex wouldn't suspect anything serious. One day, Alex even decided to try a casual conversation. "Do you want to tell me who you were with yesterday?" "What is it?" he asked, trying to sound calm. Sophia looked up, slightly surprised. "Well, I just met a friend and had coffee. You're worrying too much." Alex was almost convinced by her calmness and confidence, but deep down he felt that something was hidden. His heart wouldn't let him rest. He understood that trust is not just words, but subtle signals of behavior. At this stage, Alex doesn't know the whole truth yet, but his inner compass is starting to work. He feels that there must be a reason for Sophia's secrecy and gradually begins to prepare to expose reality. Sophia, sensing his growing doubts, behaves more and more skillfully, as if dancing on the edge of trust and mystery. She knows that the more natural she looks, the less likely Alex is to get suspicious. In the evening, when Alex returned home after his shift, he noticed minor changes. A slight smell of perfume that he had not felt before, a neatly cleaned table, a phone left in another room. It all added up to a small mosaic of anxiety that grew with each passing day. Alex knew that this was just the beginning. He did not know that events would soon develop to the point where trust would be tested in the most painful way, and the truth about Sophia and Lucas would come out. But even now, his heart was beginning to prepare for a reality he didn't dare fully imagine yet. Alex woke up with a heavy feeling. Yesterday's minor doubts could no longer be ignored. He understood that the trust between him and Sophia was beginning to crack at the seams. Today he decided to act more actively. The first thing he did was to monitor her phone calls. Secretly listening to calls through the speaker, he noticed that Sophia increasingly retreated into another room when someone called. Alex felt his heart constrict. Intuition told him that these were not ordinary conversations with friends. "Who was that? What is it?" he asked one day, trying to sound casual when Sophia returned to the living room. "Just a colleague," she replied calmly, as if it were the most natural conversation in the world. He decided to check her evening routes. Alex began to notice patterns. Meetings with her friends coincided with her strange disappearances for a couple of hours. He began quietly tracking her location, using familiar city routes and small notes about where Sophia might be. Sophia, noticing his attention, skillfully constructed her actions. She had planned in advance where to be, what excuses to give, so that Alex would not guess about the real meeting with Lucas. She continued to smile, jokingly answered questions, and looked so natural that Alex sometimes doubted his suspicions. The next step was the nightly random checks. Alex stayed at home, allegedly returning late from work to accidentally waylay Sophia. She greeted him with a smile, but inside everything was carefully calculated: to leave for another room on time, to hide the phone, to create the impression of an ordinary evening. Alex also started asking colleagues and friends to find out about her evening meetings. He asked neutral questions, asked who she was talking to. The result was zero. Sophia left only the illusion of an ordinary life around her. Every day Alex felt a growing tension. Small details that had seemed innocent before were forming an alarming mosaic. Sophia's slight smile, quick movements, hiding the phone. All this led him to believe that she was hiding something important. In the evening, when he returned from work again, Alex felt tired not only physically, but also emotionally. A battle was raging inside him between love and suspicion. He understood that any mistake could ruin their relationship completely. Sophia, in her role, remained impenetrable. Her confidence and calmness created the illusion of an ordinary marriage, and Alex sometimes doubted if he was seeing only his fears in the shadows. But his heart told him that the truth was already near, and soon her actions would not be able to be hidden. This chapter of their lives became a moment of intense anticipation. Every glance, every movement, every call. Alex was preparing for the truth to come out, and Sophia continued to play her quiet but dangerous game. In the evening, Sophia was going for a walk. Alex, as usual, tried to hide his concern by pretending to trust her. He even offered to escort her, but she gently waved him away. "No need, everything is under control," she said with a slight smile. In fact, Sophia was on her way to a prearranged meeting with Lucas. They met in a quiet park, where the sparse lights of lanterns barely illuminated the paths. Lucas was waiting for her by the bench, and when they saw each other, there was a slight, almost invisible spark of tension between them. No loudly expressed passion, no violence. Just a quiet sense of mystery and forbidden excitement. "You're on time," Lucas said, smiling. "Of course," Sophia replied, her voice steady, but her heart was beating slightly faster. They sat down on a bench and started talking. The conversation seemed casual, but every word, every look was carefully calibrated. Sophia talked about work and friends, but Lucas managed to bring the conversation to topics that piqued her interest: travel, books, shared dreams. Sophia felt a strange excitement, a mixture of interest and guilt. She understood that her actions could destroy Alex's trust, but the play of emotions and light excitement were too attractive to stop. Lucas was calm, but his every gesture, slight smile, and glance at Sophia increased her inner tension. They laughed, shared their thoughts, and exchanged quiet glances that only they could understand. Time passed unnoticed. They talked about dreams, plans for the future, and what could be interesting and exciting. Everything looked innocent from the outside, but an emotional closeness gradually accumulated between them, which Sophia carefully hid from Alex. When it was time to part ways, Sophia smiled at Lucas, as if saying goodbye to a little secret that would remain between them for a few days. She knew that she would return home to Alex, where she would have to play the role of the perfect wife again. But now there was a spark of intrigue in her heart that could not be extinguished just like that. Returning home, Sophia felt a slight anxiety and excitement at the same time. Alex, seeing her, felt again that something had changed, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Sophia was smiling again, as if nothing unusual had happened, and Alex once again believed her confidence, even though his heart told him otherwise. That night was the beginning of a chain of events that would gradually lead to the discovery of treason. A secret meeting, light excitement, hidden emotion. All this slowly but surely laid the foundation for the future drama. It's been a few days since the first meeting in the park. Sophia began to find new ways to secretly see Lucas, carefully planning each step. In the evenings, she went out with friends, visited shops or coffee shops, but in fact meetings with Lucas became regular. Each time, her heart beat slightly faster. But outwardly she remained a calm, smiling wife returning home, as if nothing unusual had happened. Lucas turned out to be a skilled conversationalist. He maintained a light flirtation without obvious intimacy, creating an emotional connection that Sophia could not fully understand, but which gradually became stronger. Their meetings were filled with a quiet game of glances, casual touching of hands, and discussion of common interests. All this happened without noise, without violence, but emotionally it was extremely tense. Alex, meanwhile, began to notice patterns. She stayed late at meetings with friends. The phone has been permanently switched to silent mode. Sophia sometimes closed messages too quickly when he appeared. He was increasingly trying to accidentally look at the phone, but Sophia skillfully hid her correspondence and calls. Alex began to feel that his trust was being tested more and more, and anxiety did not let go of him for a minute. One day, Alex decided to watch her route more closely. He did not pursue her directly, but wrote down where she was at different times, with whom she might meet. He understood that there was no direct evidence yet, but his heart told him that something was hidden. Sophia, sensing that Alex was suspicious, became even more cautious. She planned her meetings in advance. She chose crowded places, changed routes so as not to leave traces. She smiled at Alex, spoke soft words, played the role of a caring wife, and this made her secret meetings almost invisible. Each new meeting with Lucas gave Sophia a feeling of light excitement and freedom, which she had not experienced for a long time. But along with this, anxiety grew. Every time she returned home, she felt a small sense of guilt mixed with excitement. Alex felt that the web of hidden actions was beginning to narrow around him. He understood that one day the truth would come out, but so far he had not had the opportunity to verify all the guesses. His inner tension grew, and every night he went to bed with the feeling that something was wrong in their house, although outwardly everything looked normal. One evening, Sophia decided that she would meet Lucas after Alex's work. The plan was risky. She got into his taxi, pretending to be an ordinary passenger, and Lucas arranged to meet her on a certain street. Alex, unaware of the plan, continued his usual shift, ferrying passengers around the city. When Sophia got into the taxi, her smile was light and relaxed. She greeted Alex with a familiar, "Hey, honey, how was your shift?" Alex nodded, immersed in the usual rhythm of work. "Everything is quiet. There is a little traffic, but nothing unusual." Sophia got into the back seat, took out her phone, and quickly texted. A few minutes later, Lucas appeared on the designated street. They exchanged a brief glance, and Sophia quietly got out of the taxi, heading towards him. Alex, busy talking to the radio station and the traffic lights, did not immediately notice the slightest oddity. Lucas and Sophia were standing a few meters away, chatting quietly, talking in short phrases. There were no loud emotions in their behavior, but there was a hidden closeness that Alex would not have been able to understand if he had seen it from the outside. Sophia quickly returned to the taxi, behaving as usual, smiling, chatting lightly, even joking about traffic jams. Alex felt a slight strangeness in her gaze, but attributed it to fatigue or evening mood. She skillfully concealed her involvement in the intrigue, leaving Alex in complete ignorance. Inside, Sophia felt a mixture of excitement and guilt. Every touch of Lucas's hand, every short word he said, made my heart beat faster. She understood that she was violating trust, but the excitement of secrecy was too attractive. Alex, on the other hand, was driving along familiar routes, unaware that a small mystery was unfolding in his cabin. He noticed only a slight change in Sophia's mood, which could be attributed to fatigue, evening emotions, and ordinary conversations. The following days of Alex's shift became filled with a strange inner tension. More and more often, he caught himself thinking that something was wrong. Every ride with Sophia in the back seat now caused him slight anxiety, even if she sat quietly and smiled. One evening, Sophia got back into a taxi after work, as if it were a regular route. Alex noticed a slight tremor in her hands as she took out her phone. She quickly put it in her bag, but Alex caught the tiniest movement, a glance that slipped out from under her eyelashes, a quick gesture, as if she was hiding something. "Is everything okay?" "What is it?" he asked carefully, trying not to sound suspicious. "Yes, I'm just tired," Sophia replied. Her smile was calm, but there was a hint of anxiety in her eyes. Alex felt the alarm in his heart increase. He began to watch her every move more closely. How she sits down, how she holds her bag, how she takes out her phone. Every little gesture formed a mosaic that haunted him. On the next turn, Alex noticed Sophia nervously checking her phone, pretending to write a message, but her eyes were scanning the screen. He did not see the content, but this moment seemed to burn his consciousness. Something was hidden, something important. Alex's inner tension was growing by the minute. He understood that if he did not reveal this secret, anxiety would corrode him from the inside. "My heart told me that the truth couldn't be ignored, that it would come out soon, even if Sophia was trying to be perfect." Sophia, feeling his gaze, remained calm. She smiled and answered questions, creating the illusion of an ordinary evening. But inside her heart, a mixture of excitement and fear arose again. Every time Alex became more attentive, she realized that the game was becoming more risky. As they continued driving through the night streets, the tension in the taxi cabin became almost palpable. Alex felt that he was close to the solution, and Sophia understood that the secret she had so skillfully hidden was hanging on the thin edge of disclosure. This trip became the point where the game of trust and deception reached its limit. Alex was already feeling alarm signals, and Sophia understood that any wrong move could turn into disaster. There was a growing feeling inside each of them that soon everything would change forever. This time, Sophia was planning a meeting with Lucas in a small cafe outside the city. She came up with a plausible excuse for Alex: meeting a friend, coffee after work. Alex, although he felt a little anxious, believed her because Sophia looked confident and calm again. When Sophia entered the cafe, Lucas was already waiting for her. His smile was soft, almost innocent, but there was a spark in his eyes that made her heart beat faster. They exchanged a brief glance, full of understanding that was only available to them. "You're on time," Lucas said softly, almost in a whisper, as if it were their little secret. "Of course," Sophia replied, trying to control the emotions that overwhelmed her inside. The conversation started with the usual topics: work, books, the weather, but gradually moved on to more personal things: dreams, plans, hobbies. Every word Lucas said, every light joke, every look created an invisible emotional connection that increased her excitement. Sophia felt a mixture of excitement and guilt. Every time she thought about Alex being at home at that time, her heart sank. But meeting Lucas gave her emotions she hadn't experienced in a long time: interest, lightness, a feeling that she was living her life to the fullest again, and not just within the framework of her usual marriage. Lucas held himself calmly, confidently, as if he knew that they were both on the verge of something forbidden, but that was what made their meeting even more exciting. They laughed, discussed common interests, and exchanged glances that said more than words. Time flew by unnoticed. Sophia looked at her watch and realized that she had to go home. She said goodbye to Lucas with a light smile and a quiet, "See you soon." Returning home, she felt mixed emotions: excitement, slight anxiety. Alex would greet her again with his usual smile, and she would once again assume the role of the perfect wife, hiding what had happened just a couple of hours earlier. For Alex, this meeting was another alarm signal. He began to notice small details: Sophia's slight fatigue, random movements, trembling in her hands. He understood that something was hidden, that the trust between them was beginning to be tested to the limit. In the evening, after Alex's long shift, Sophia was going to meet a friend again. This time, the meeting was scheduled closer to home, in a quiet park where few people came. Sophia's heart was beating faster than usual. Excitement and anxiety were intertwined in the feeling of an upcoming game on the verge of risk. Lucas was already waiting for her, hiding in the shadows of the trees. When Sophia approached, he smiled and lightly touched her hand. At that moment, the whole world around her ceased to exist. There was only her and him, a little secret that they kept together. "You're on time," Lucas said. "Always," Sophia replied, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. The conversation started with the usual topics, but soon they found themselves immersed in a discussion of what each of them was deeply concerned about: dreams, plans, common interests. Every word Lucas said, every look created an invisible emotional connection that was almost tangible. Meanwhile, Alex, being at home, felt an unusual anxiety. He tried to focus on his paperwork, but his thoughts kept returning to Sophia. There was something about her behavior over the past few days that was unsettling, small details that he couldn't ignore. He decided to go outside for a while to check the air and casually walk around the block. On the way to the park, Alex felt a strange tension. "My heart was pounding faster than usual." And suddenly, around the corner, he saw them, Sophia and Lucas, standing too close to each other, immersed in a quiet conversation, light touching of hands. At that moment, Alex's world seemed to freeze. Everything he had suspected had now come true. Emotions gripped him: pain, shock, betrayal. Sophia and Lucas, not noticing his appearance, continued their intrigue, and Alex realized that the trust on which their marriage was based was destroyed. It took Sophia a moment to notice him. Panic and the realization of a mistake flashed in her eyes. Lucas, seeing Alex, quietly moved aside, realizing that the game was over. Alex stood motionless, trying to make sense of what had happened. Thoughts were spinning in my head. How long has this been going on? Why didn't I notice before? What should I do now? The next evening, Alex went back to the night shift. His thoughts were still revolving around the scene he had seen in the park. He couldn't understand how the trust he had built over the years had crumbled in a matter of moments. My heart ached with pain and betrayal. But the job required concentration, and he had difficulty focusing on the road, on the passengers, on the routes. Sophia knew that Alex would be at work and decided to meet with Lucas in an even more daring way. This time, the place was chosen as risky as possible: her ride in Alex's taxi. She sat in the back seat, pretending to be an ordinary passenger, while Lucas waited at a pre-appointed place. Sophia felt an unusual excitement. She knew that the game was reaching a new level, that now they were literally in Alex's space, his taxi, his routes, his world. And this made the intrigue an even more acute test. The fear of being noticed and the excitement of the mystery mixed into one whirlwind of emotions. As the taxi pulled away, Sophia held her phone in her hands, pretending to check her messages. But her gaze kept sliding to the door, where Alex might appear. Lucas arrived just in time. The soft glow of a street lamp illuminated his face as he approached the car. "Is everything ready?" "What is it?" he asked softly, barely smiling. "Yes," Sophia replied, trying to keep her voice level, but her voice was trembling from the inside. They were sitting side by side in the back seat, talking quietly. Every word, every look was filled with tension and hidden intimacy. No loud actions, no violence, just each other's emotional presence, understanding, and a sense of the mystery they shared. Sophia felt her heart beating faster than usual, a mixed feeling of guilt and excitement growing in her chest. Every moment with Lucas was filled with forbidden emotional intimacy. She understood that she was betraying Alex, that she was destroying trust, but the inner game with the forbidden secret was too attractive to stop. Meanwhile, Alex was checking his route again at work, planning his shift, but deep down his anxiety was growing. He still didn't know what exactly was going on, but his gut told him that something important was hidden. When the meeting was over, Sophia smiled at Lucas again as she left the taxi cabin. Emotions were raging inside her, a slight sense of freedom, excitement mixed with guilt. She was returning to her usual role as the perfect wife, smiling at Alex and acting as if nothing unusual had happened. Alex, when he returned home after his shift later, again caught subtle signals. Sophia's slight fatigue, the occasional tremor of her hands, glances from which it was impossible to take his eyes off. He felt that the web of mystery was gradually narrowing around him, and the truth was about to be revealed. This chapter became a moment of emotional betrayal. Everything happened right in Alex's space, in his salon, in his world. No vulgarity or violence, just hidden intimacy, a forbidden play of emotions and a sense of betrayal, which will soon result in full awareness for all three of them. Sophia, walking away from Lucas, knew that she had crossed an invisible line. Her actions left no room for excuses, only for consequences. Alex, not yet seeing the whole picture, was already feeling the tension that would soon lead to a real clash with the truth. The next morning began for Alex with a heavy feeling in his chest. All day at work, he found himself thinking about Sophia and Lucas. His inner tension had reached its limit, and he understood. He needs the truth, no matter how bitter it may be. When Alex returned home after his shift, the house seemed too quiet. Sophia greeted him with her usual smile, as if nothing unusual had happened. But Alex's heart was squeezed with anxiety. He felt that something important was hidden, that the trust on which their marriage was based had been seriously tested. He started a cautious conversation. "Sophia, can you be honest with me?" "Of course, honey," she replied evenly, slightly surprised. Alex paused, gathering his thoughts. "Yesterday, when I was coming home from work, I saw something." Sophia felt a sudden wave of anxiety. Her face paled for a moment, but outwardly she remained calm. "What is it? What is it?" she asked, trying to hide her inner tension. "In the park, with Lucas," Alex said softly, exhaling heavily. "I saw you both." At that moment, silence fell in the house. Sophia knew that it was impossible to hide anymore. Her heart sank with guilt, but the excitement she had felt in meetings with Lucas now turned into fear and understanding of the consequences. "Alex, she began, but couldn't finish. Alex stood there, clenching his fists, trying to control his emotions. His mind struggled with pain and betrayal, but his heart already felt the reality. Trust was destroyed, relationships were tested to the limit. He took a deep breath and said, "We need to talk and decide what happens next." Sophia nodded, realizing that the hidden game was over. A mixture of fear, regret, and anxiety raged inside her. Her actions carried consequences that could not simply be undone. Alex felt that he was on the verge of emotional collapse, but he also understood that now he had to act consciously. The love and devotion he felt for Sophia collides with betrayal, and every step forward requires inner strength. After the revelation in the park, Alex returned home with a heavy heart. The silence in the house seemed oppressive, as if every corner was a reminder that trust had been destroyed. He sat down on the sofa, took a deep breath, and tried to collect his thoughts. Emotions were beating in him like a storm. First shock, then confusion, then bitterness and anger. He understood that treason is not just an act, but a betrayal that leaves a mark on the heart forever. But in the midst of this pain, another feeling flared up, the need to decide what to do next. Alex decided not to get emotional. He understood that the main thing now was to keep his mind clear. He began to systematically think about everything that had happened. When did the secret meetings begin? How did Sophia hide them? How did this affect their marriage and his trust? Every moment of remembering hurt his soul, but Alex understood that without this analysis he would not be able to act rationally. He understood that any spontaneous decisions could turn into even more pain. He decided to talk to Sophia first, but not in anger, but calmly, to find out the motives and reasons. He wanted to understand why she had betrayed his trust, what had led her to seek intimacy with Lucas. Alex knew that until he dealt with the origins of infidelity, it was impossible to make final decisions about the future. In the evening, he called Sophia for a conversation. She approached him with her head down, realizing that she could no longer hide her emotions and excuses. Alex spoke calmly but firmly. "We need to honestly discuss everything that happened. I want to understand why." Sophia nodded, ready to speak, though fear and excitement overwhelmed her. She understood that any attempt to justify herself would sound different than before. Now the trust was destroyed. Alex began to make a plan of his actions. Listen to Sophia and understand the motives. To remain rational, not to give in to impulsive decisions. Decide whether to try to restore the relationship or go for a divorce. Consider the division of property and possible legal registration if the marriage is completed. This moment became a turning point. Alex realized that Sophia's betrayal was not just an event, but a test of his own boundaries and strength of character. He felt bitterness, but at the same time an inner determination. He would be able to make the right decision for himself, even if it would be painful. Alex spent the next few days in deep concentration on his own life and the future. Emotions, although still bubbling inside, gradually began to obey logic. He understood that now it was impossible to act on impulse. Every decision must be considered and rational. He started by analyzing marriage. Alex recalled how his relationship with Sophia began, the joy of first dates, trust, and shared plans. But now those memories are clouded by betrayal. He realized that he couldn't ignore the obvious. Their relationship would never be the same unless major changes took place. Alex made a list of his priorities. Emotional stability. The solution of legal issues is the division of property, possible divorce. Recovery, self-improvement, personal life, and health. A clear understanding of what he expects from Sophia if he wants to save the marriage. He wasn't going to make any sudden moves without analysis. Alex started looking for legal advice to understand his rights and options. He also thought about financial and household aspects, joint accounts, apartment, car, property. Everything required systematization and planning. Sophia understood that her actions had led to serious consequences. She tried to explain herself, but Alex listened to her calmly, not giving in to emotions. He asked questions. Why? What were you looking for outside of marriage? Are you ready to work on restoring trust? Sophia answered honestly, but she understood that every word she said now had weight, and there were no simple excuses. Alex felt a mixture of pain and determination inside. He understood that betrayal destroys not only trust in a partner, but also a person's inner harmony. He began to write down his thoughts, pondering a plan of action to regain control of his own life. At the same time, Alex felt relieved. Now he knew the truth. There was no more agonizing uncertainty, doubts, and guesses. The truth is painful, but it allowed us to build the next steps consciously. Alex was sitting at the table with a cup of strong tea and a notebook in front of him. His thoughts were clear. Now he needed to act, not just suffer betrayal. Every decision must be rational, considered, and honest. The first step was to talk to Sophia again, but not as a husband full of anxiety and suspicion, but as an adult who understands the value of trust and betrayal. Sophia, he said calmly, I've given myself time to think. We have to decide what will happen to our marriage. Sophia lowered her gaze, realizing that excuses would no longer help. Alex, I realize, she began softly, that I've made a huge mistake. Alex nodded. He listened to her honestly, but without emotional hysteria. He understood that trust can be restored only through actions, not words. He set himself 3 options. Try to restore the marriage if Sophia is ready to fully work on trust. File for divorce and divide the property in order to preserve their own dignity and emotional peace. Take a break to finally assess your feelings and understand if it is possible to continue living together. Alex began to act. He sought legal advice to understand how to properly arrange the division of property. He also signed up for psychological sessions to deal with emotional shock and learn how to make decisions without anger and resentment. Sophia felt the consequences of her actions immediately. Her usual confidence disappeared, and guilt became a constant companion. She understood that for Alex it was not just a betrayal, but a test of all his strength and character. Lucas, although he remained a part of her secret life, was now beyond Sophia's control. His actions had real consequences, and the excitement of the mystery was replaced by heavy responsibility. Alex, gradually realizing the situation, began to regain control of his life. He realized that cheating had destroyed trust, but it hadn't destroyed his inner strength. He began to plan for the future, both with Sophia, if there was an opportunity to restore the relationship, and without her, if the choice fell on divorce. Alex started the morning by staying at home for a few hours, reflecting on every aspect of his life after the betrayal. He understood that emotional chaos would not help him make the right decisions. Inner peace became his top priority. First of all, he reviewed financial and household issues. Alex created separate bank accounts to protect himself and began recording all joint expenses. He understood that any decisions about marriage or divorce would require a clear picture of the material aspects. The next step was talking to Sophia. He was firm and calm. "We need to share responsibilities and resources until we decide what's next," he said. Sophia felt the weight of the consequences of her betrayal. She could no longer hide her anxiety and guilt. Her usual game of secrecy and concealment lost its meaning. Alex acted rationally and decisively. Her every excuse was now met with her husband's cold and thoughtful gaze. Alex also began to restore inner harmony. He joined a gym, started spending more time with friends, and returning to hobbies that he had previously put off. He understood his life must not stop because of betrayal. Every little action reinforced his sense of control and independence. Sophia watched this with concern. She felt that the excitement that the intrigue with Lucas had given her no longer had any power. Alex has stopped being a passive victim. He has become a person who is able to decide and act. It hit her inner sense of control hard. At work, Alex began to focus on his duties again, but now every route, every taxi ride carried awareness. He understood that trust had been destroyed, but his own life should not be destroyed along with it. It's been a few days since control was restored. Alex carefully considered all the options, an attempt to save the marriage, a divorce, or a pause to think. Every step required clarity, because emotions were still bubbling inside. He called Sophia out to talk again. This time, his voice was calm but firm. "Sophia, I've given myself time to think. We both understand that trust has been destroyed. Now we need to make decisions that will define our lives." Sophia realized that the game was over. The excitement and secrets that gave her a sense of control and emotion were replaced by a heavy sense of responsibility and guilt. She looked down, her usual excuses no longer valid. Alex made a choice. He explained to Sophia, "We can try to restore trust if you are ready to fully work on yourself and our marriage. Or we'll break up, but we'll do it in a civilized way, without scandals, without resentment, with a clear division of property." Sophia felt the full weight of her actions. She understood that everything now depended on her honesty and willingness to correct mistakes. Any lies or concealment will now lead to the final breakup. Alex started planning the next steps. Consultations with a lawyer to assess the rights and obligations in case of a possible divorce. Preparing for the division of property in order to preserve justice and personal dignity. Personal therapy and support to cope with emotional pain and not let betrayal destroy the inner world. Determining the conditions of living together if there is an attempt to save the marriage, including transparency, honesty, and open borders. Sophia felt the consequences of her betrayal in full. The excitement of the mystery disappeared. Only the reality remained. The need to be responsible for her actions and face the consequences. She understood that now every step in their lives would be determined by her actions and willingness to work on mistakes. Alex, on the other hand, felt in control of the situation for the first time in a long time. The pain of betrayal still remained, but now it has become an instrument of conscious choice. He realized that it was impossible to change the past, but it was possible to build the future while maintaining dignity and inner strength.